Hey guys, Jessica here, and welcome to the spoiler review of Resident Evil Extinction. This movie is not my favorite. So, this movie, so this apocalypse ended in kind of an interesting way. Apocalypse ended with Jill, Angie, Carlos, LJ, and Alice all in the car together because they just broke um, because they just because they're leaving with Alice and they turned something on her. I learned it. So in this movie, it's confirmed what they did to her. The thing that they turned on in her was like a satellite thing. They were tracking Alice, and apparently, it's also revealed in this movie that Alice, that why Alice is first shown in this movie like alone, and is alone for a good bit of the beginning, is that and continues to pretty much stay alone is because she was because of the fact that she was being tracked. So she left everybody in Detroit and some other stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening there. Basically, this scientist guy, Dr. Isaac, he's basically the main villain of this movie. He's not the overarching main villain. Apparently, the overarching main villain, if I remember correctly, hasn't even shown up yet, unless if it's Wesker, because this is the first movie with Wesker. So apparently, there's no explanation for Jill just being gone, and there's nothing about Angie. Apparently, Jill was supposed to be in this movie, but she was doing a different movie at the time. And I was looking at some stuff. Um, the only thing I know about the next few movies is that Jill isn't in all of the next movies. I just know that Jill's in some of the movies that we will be covering, that we will be starting to cover. But yeah, so this movie is kind of all over the place. It starts with Dr. Isaac at like a meeting. Well, it starts with Dr. Well, it starts with an Alice. It starts with Alice like basically reliving the events of the first movie, and then she like collapses in the hallway. The scientist guys throw her into this ditch. Like they take a sample of her blood and then throw her into a ditch. And basically, there's just a lot of dead. There's a lot of just dead Alice's in this ditch because they're trying to make clones of Alice, but OG Alice was just the one you're seeing. Normal Alice. She's the since she's the original, she's the most powerful and stuff, and they just are failing to replicate her. Oh yeah, when we first see Alice, she's driving on a motorcycle, just talking about how the survivors nowadays have to keep moving. She gets a call from some people. She goes see them. This old lady gives her a fake baby. Basically, they I guess kidnap people and then they try to fight them. One guy was trying to bang Alice, literally like unzipped his pants and stuff. He got kicked in the face and died upon impact. So that's cool. But yeah, so she fights these zombie dogs in this sort of arena pit thing that they had, but because she like because of how she like tied them up, they pulled down like the building, and then the zombies came up and were killing all the people that like sent the distress call. She grabbed the guns and ammo that they had, then she left. She also has powers in this movie. The first time we see her out, well, her powers have gotten more advanced. Because in Apocalypse, the most advanced her powers was she looked at a guy through like she looked at this camera and just the guy that was on the other end, like a blood came out of his eyes and stuff. He died. But in this movie, the first event like thing of her power she does is like while she's sleeping, she's sort of having these nightmares of like they are kind of go back to the first movie, and she doesn't realize it, but there's like a bunch of rocks around her floating in the air, and her bike floats up in the air. And then when she finally comes to like breaks out of the nightmare, her bike comes, it just hits the ground and just like is just destroyed. So she go, and then Claire has a convoy. They've been losing a lot of people, I guess. In this movie, they show Carlos and LJ from Apocalypse are with her. LJ gets bitten pretty early on. Doesn't tell anybody for some reason. He spends his. There's this girl he likes. She dies. There's like there's zombie birds now because basically Umbrella thought that the 5 kiloton nuke they shot in the Raccoon City would fix everything. It didn't. It spread around the entire world. And then Alice found someone's journal that I guess was they had made 6 months prior, saying how Alaska would be is the safest place. Like I guess the infection hadn't gone there. So when she goes, so eventually Alice ends up being with Claire and all them. She uses her powers to like use the fire from this flamethrower to kill all the birds. And then there's this girl who calls herself Kmart just because that's where they found her. So she just uses the name Kmart now. Gave her like a good luck bracelet and some other stuff. I'm not sure if we're ever gonna see any of these characters again. I do not know. I There's still 3 movies to go, so if they do show up again, any of the characters from this movie, or any, if they could just die off screen. But if they do mention them, it'll probably be in a later movie. I hope they do. I would like to see them again, maybe later, or at least get an exclamation for if something happens to them. Because in this movie, you don't get that. I'm still very upset to learn that Angie technically is dead. Angie was a character I really liked from Apocalypse. She wasn't like I wouldn't say she's my favorite, but I was excited to kind of see more of her, like her sort of grow up in these movies and stuff. No, she's just dead now, so I'm pretty heartbroken about that, kind of upset about that. But yeah, so Alice, when she meets everybody, she goes and she shows them the journal. They all Claire throws out a vote to all the people list them. They say, let's go to Alaska. So they go to Las Vegas, and it's just covered in sand completely. There's very little, like, sticking above the sand. And I guess, and Alice is the only person that knows why. I guess it's because there was 5 years of nobody, like, keeping the sand back, so it just sort of basically reclaimed the city, just started covering everything. They open this giant crate thing, hoping to get some. Well, Alice goes to it, realizes something's wrong, so a bunch of zombies come out of it, so they're all fighting them. If I remember correctly, LJ becomes a zombie, basically during like not too long after all this. So they're like fighting a bunch of zombies, and then it cuts back to Alice, our girl. No, actually, sorry. So Alice is just being a badass in this scene. She's just killing zombies, just being a boss. Carlos is shooting zombies in the face. Claire's shooting zombies. I think it might have. I think it was Kmart, but Kmart was shown as a little pussy. Because she just immediately, as soon as she sees the zombies, she gets scared, starts screaming, runs away. Zombies are chasing her. It seems like Claire was trying to help her. At least that's what I thought, because of how the shots were taken. Claire told Carlos to cover her and started running. So I thought she was going to go help K-Bar, but no, she's just kind of killing zombies. She's not actually like trying to save everything. K-Bar gets into the truck with LJ. LJ is still like barely, like he's barely human right now. Um, So they're all fighting zombies. There's this guy named Mickey that seems to be pretty important to Claire. He gets like eaten by a bunch of zombies. Claire starts shooting them with a lever action rifle, and yeah, Mickey dies. And then there's this guy named Chase who's supposed to be the lookout. So he's on the If you guys have been to Las Vegas, which I actually have been once, and I saw this building. There's a Eiffel Tower there in a Las Vegas. It's not obviously the Eiffel Tower that's in Paris, but there's like it's a miniature Eiffel Tower. He climbed up that and was shooting zombies. And then a bunch of zombies were climbing after this one girl. He was trying to help her, and then he got bitten. And then he jumps, and then he tells her, this girl, to save herself. So he jumps off of the thing. The zombies nail the ground. He nails part of the Eiffel Tower, dying upon impact because he's hitting, flipping steel. So he's dead. And then what else happened? So and then Alice was like just killing a bunch of zombies. She was going to go help this one girl. but she was getting eaten. Like the zombie was just eating her when she got up there, and then she just kind of. And then so the main villain, Doctor Isaac is with these. He's with some other soldiers, and they're just watching. They they're like they have a lock on Alice, so they're just using Alice. Like they can see exactly what she's seeing, which is kind of cool. It was kind of probably honestly some of the most interesting shots of this movie were there because you see Alice in like first person just killing zombies at a few points, which is cool. Probably the most unique, definitely one of the most unique shots in this movie. This movie is the first movie to not do the slow mo like bullet flying through the air shot. The original Resident Evil had one of those, and Resident Evil Apocalypse had a scene where she shoots two pistols at the same time, and they do it for both of those. There's nothing like that in this movie. They don't do the slow down. There is a scene that's slow mo, but there's none of that like slow mo close up shots of the bullet. It was just like for some reason slower pace, or at least it was shown to us slower pace. I don't know why. But yeah, so Dr. Isaac and these guys are trying to shut down Alice, but Alice is resisting them, and she straight up at one point she straight up looks at the satellite, and it cuts to show you basically what's happening is the satellite. It's having a bunch of electrical issues, and the chip in the satellite chips are very these chips are very important. It literally it breaks. She destroys it like with her powers. It like breaks. So then the satellite's off. They're trying to get a new read on the satellites. Alice finds them. She goes into the tent, just shooting everybody. Dr. Isaac gets onto a helicopter. They take off. Alice is about to shoot them. She never does. Kmart asks why. She says because they're not gonna, drive to Alaska. They're gonna take the helicopter. So then they find Dr. Isaac's lab. Oh yeah, LJ is long dead. I didn't really mention it, but yeah, Carlos shot him in the face. Don't worry about it. So because of the battle in Las Vegas, Carlos got bit, so he's technically turning. But Carlos, he has an idea that will help everybody get to Alaska. So his big idea is he's when they get to the base of Dr. Isaac, his lab, they start driving through zombies, and then he like loses control. I think on purpose, but he's shown he loses control, but I'm pretty sure it's on purpose. So he's in like this oil tanker, and it falls, and he lights up a. Finds that LJ like had a cigarette like kept somewhere, so he lights a thing, and then he lights the cigarette as zombies are just climbing on this truck trying to get him, and then the truck just explodes. Carlos is dead in an explosion. As soon as the explosion happens, Alice slams on the gas of this car they're in, drives straight for the gates. Claire gets the helicopter up and running. Everybody, they start. Alice is helping them like get the kids on these helicopters, and then Kmart and them get on. Alice gives Kmart back this sort of good luck charm thing, like bracelet that Kmart gave her, and Kmart's like, "Wait, you're not coming," and Alice doesn't go with them to Alaska. She just tells Kmart like take care of everybody and stuff. So they fly off. But to be fair, I kind of, to be fair, I get why Alice decides not to leave, because Alice is now Alice is at the lab. She's kind of wanting to deal with it, like learn more about stuff. So I understand why she didn't leave, but it does suck. She does see the ditch of all of these dead Alice clones. She walks into the room. She gets into the lab, and she's greeted by a computer AI that looks identical to the one from the first movie, like when because they're in that like human form thing. Well, they're a hologram of this like little girl. And Alice is like, "I met your sister." Is like talking a bit about it, and of course the computer's like, she was my sister computer was doing the was just doing the protocol stuff. Um, but yeah, so the computer tells Alice that her blood is the key to all this, I guess, and that basically Dr. Isaac mutated because we see him because Albert Wesker's like the leader of everything, and he's very angry with Dr. Isaac. Tells this guy to like sort of condemn his research, so he shoots Dr. Isaac. But Dr. Isaac has it's similar to if you've played Resident Evil 5 or Albert Wesker in Dead by Daylight, then you would know about Ouroboros. It was similar to Ouroboros in the sense it was like a weird tentacle thing that came out of his hand, like in multiple, and he did that straight for the guy's face, so he's dead. And then, so when Al, but that was like way before. So when Alice gets there, he's like more mutated. He's calling himself the future and all this stuff because he like can't die. Like Alice is stabbing him with these things and just just beating him up, and it's not doing anything. But like, oh yeah, so we'll get there though. So Alice, when she goes down to the lab area, she immediately sees a clone of herself. After you see Dr. Isaac as sort of a black figure thing go like across somewhere. The clone then comes out of its thing, so Alice, real Alice, and the clone just kind of feigns like it's kind of funny because both Alice and the clone have the same exact shocked expression on their faces, and the clone seems to just like collapse from like shock basically. So Alice puts I don't know if she's wearing it in this picture, but she has a decently cool look, and it kind of reminds me of let's see if I can find it. No, yeah, that this like jacket thing she's wearing in this picture. She puts this black jacket thing. She puts it over the clone sort of as a blanket. I kind of like her deserty outfit in this movie. That scar thing goes like she puts it around her head, and then she has these goggles she wears, and then she has of course this trench coat. She has like a bunch of holsters for like the pistols and stuff. It's a decently cool look. Um, but yeah, basically but yeah, this outer coat thing is like what's wrapped around it. So real Alice is fighting this thing, and she's kind of, well, she doesn't fight it quite yet. She goes into a room, and it's the exact same layout as the mansion she wakes up in the first movie, so she's just kind of looking around, remembering the first movie. A lot of this movie, what's kind of cool about this movie is because of like because of how they're testing the clones and stuff, a lot of it is parallel to the first movie, which is kind of cool. I hate the first movie though. I'm just it's so bad. This movie is better, but it's still really bad. I still prefer Apocalypse. Apocalypse just had a lot more going on, but it's fine. Um, Definitely don't regret watching these movies just because I've always been curious to watch them, and I figured why not talk about them on the channel. I don't regret this decision at all, honestly. I might not watch any of these movies ever again unless if Orange really wants to watch them with me or something. But I just can't see myself watching these. Besides maybe Apocalypse, so far I can't see myself watching the others. But you never know. So basically, yeah. So then Dr. Isaac shows up, and he can talk. It's kind of weird because he's this weird monster mutated creature thing, but he can talk. Um, so him and Alice are fighting. Alice is, of course, using her powers and stuff, and staying alive and stuff. Alice eventually ends up in the laser room from the first movie. If you remember the laser room from the first movie, the one lady doesn't duck when the first laser comes. She gets decapitated. The other guy lost his fingers. Second laser come up. That guy jumped. Got cut in half. The sort of leader of the soldiers stayed alive, and it did a diamond pattern and cut him completely in the like multiple pieces. So in the laser room, Alice is like being all like, "You're gonna like we're both gonna die in here." But what she doesn't know is that the clone that woke up is controlling the laser. So because the clone has enough of Alice's memories to know, the clone uses the diamond pattern, completely cuts the Dr. Isaac in the diamond pattern, so he starts falling apart. He's dead, and then Alice it stops and turns off right before he gets to Alice. So her and the clone kind of look at each other and stuff. They're fine. Um, but and then there's a Wesker has a meeting. Alice tunes into it. Is talking to them about how she's coming for them and how she's bringing her friends. And then her and the clone are looking at stuff, and you see like like a ridiculous amount of clone Alice's, and they're all at the end of this movie. They're all like waking up, and that's how this movie ends. Um, it kind of sucks that something that sort of upsets me is that um, people that are genuinely associated with Alice seem to all die. Like in the first movie, everybody died. In the first movie, they all die except for Matt. I finally remember his name. It's a miracle, right? And then in the second movie, that one soldier guy that got bitten earlier, he became a zombie and died. The reporter died. Of leaving, basically the only people left were Angie, Jill, and Carlos, and LJ, besides Alice. And then Angie apparently dies off screen to some soldiers. It's never addressed in the movie. There was supposed to be a scene of it, but for some reason, it didn't happen. So yeah, Angie is dead apparently. Canonically, she's dead. Jill was supposed to be in this movie, but she's not. So she's doing off something somewhere. I'm a little nervous because I only know that because I know she's not. From what I saw, she's not in the last movie. So I'm really nervous something bad happens to Jill. Um, but I guess we'll find out. And then in this movie, LJ dies, Carlos dies, a lot of other random people die. The only people left are Claire and everybody that went to Alaska, and that's pretty much it. I kind of feel bad for Alice in that sense, because in the first movie, she's like hell bent on helping everybody, and then she just watches all these other, everybody die, and then every other movie, she's like she has to, of course, deal with that, and more people are dying. But yeah, this movie is oh god, this movie. It's not as bad. I would say it's better. It's better than one, but this is the most nervous movie I've ever been going into it. And then the entire time I was watching it, I was just like, I hope it gets better. Because it's not terrible, but it just really isn't as good, in my opinion, as Apocalypse. I just really enjoyed Apocalypse. And Claire seems to be a lot different in this movie than the games. A lot of the characters seem to be different from their movie counterparts. I know that. So I'm nervous. I'm definitely nervous because the other movies we recently watched are the final chapters, which is the last movie, Afterlife, and Retribution. I'm nervous for all three of those movies, just because there's a lot they could do, right? If we do see Claire again and some of the people with her, there's a good chance they will all be killed off. Apparently Jill comes back in these movies, but there's a pretty good chance that as much as we all like Jill, there's a good chance she could get killed off. You never know. I hope not, but you never know. There's a chance for even Alice herself to get killed off. Nothing's really off the table. But yeah, I'm just very nervous. I'm gonna end this video before I start rambling. Make sure to like. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, ring the bell. Do all the algorithmic garbage. It helps us out a lot, and it means a lot to us. I have not too much longer to watch all these movies, so expect potentially another one of these movies, another spoiler-free and spoiler review very soon of another one of these. Because I gotta get through this somehow. But yeah, stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more of the League of Marvel Superhero 100% run. Stay tuned for potentially more Resident Evil videos. Stay tuned for a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, stay tuned for the. I do have plans for to make some Dead by Daylight videos. Again, they're actually gameplay. I just don't know what I'm gonna do with it. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.